For those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Ambrosia Branson. I am the project coordinator for a 1-year program here in the state of Illinois known as the Circle of Care. If you guys aren't familiar with what the Circle of Care is, again, we're a 1-year project. And really, what we're aiming to do in our 1 year is build this network of support for children, teens, and families who have experienced grief or loss due to substance use related death and disorders. So that could be for kiddos who have lost their loved ones due to a substance use related death, such as a drug overdose, or that could be for a lot of kiddos who are still living in the chaos where, they're still living in a home where substance use is present or prevalent. And so with our program, we have a lot of different program components that we've done to try to help and support these children and these families, as well as our natural helpers or community helpers or anyone that has any type of interaction with children. Um, we're really in our 1 year, we've tried to support them and provide training to teach them different tools and strategies they can use to support these children and families. And so, one of the big things with the Circle of Care project is the Handle with Care initiative, which is what all of you are here to learn about today. So, really, in this presentation, what we're going to be talking about is what Handle with Care is, how you can get this implemented in your community. At the end, we'll talk a lot about a bunch of different resources and materials that we have created and how all of these are going to be accessible for all of you. We'll also talk about these comfort bags for kids if you guys are interested. So definitely listen very closely for that. And then I also just wanted to let everyone know. So, like I said, my name's Ambrosia. I'm with the Circle of Care. But with our project, we are partnering with the SIU School of Medicine Center for Rural Health and Social Service Development, which I will pass that over to Liesel whenever she talks a little bit about that and what she does with SIU. And really, with this presentation, you guys are gonna see a variety of different speakers. We've got a lot of people on our team who are working to implement Handle with Care across the state. So I'm going to give you the briefest description of Handle with Care, which is right there. It's an initiative that was created to support vulnerable children through simple communication and partnerships between law enforcement, first responders, and educators. And so now at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Liesel, and then as we go through the presentation, our other presenters, they will tell you who they are and why they're on here.
Okay, my name is Liesel Wingert. I'm with the SIU School of Medicine Center for Rural Health and Social Service Development. Long title there. I'm the program coordinator for the eastern side of the state, but I work within all of our rural counties throughout the state of Illinois. And the biggest part of my work works with addiction and recovery, but very specifically with drug endangered children and family human trafficking. So this project is very, very close to my heart because Handle with Care was built out of some of the things going on with drug endangered children. That's where it was initially recognized. And so when I do my drug endangered children and I work within family human trafficking trainings, this Handle with Care is just a natural response to those things. So Handle with Care is a simple community response, very, very simple community response that helps kids who are experiencing trauma. Law enforcement, very simply put, law enforcement will have a specific way within your community to notify a school contact that has been pre-designated to handle that situation. And then that school contact will send out an alert to all of the necessary people within the school system that only says handle Johnny Smith with care. It doesn't give any details as to what the trauma was that happened, just letting those people know who are going to come in contact with that child during the day. Something has happened. You need to be on alert that if this child is having a rough time, this is probably why. So let me real quick give you a quick scenario. I'll go into more in depth later on as I talk further. But for right now, what this does in a community is it lays the groundwork to have a relationship between law enforcement and school personnel. They have to sit down and talk about this. They have to figure out who their point people are going to be. They also have to have a way to let everybody within the school system, everybody within law enforcement know what Handle with Care is. So we have, let's say we have a child that is pulled out of the home at 8 o'clock at night. Mom and dad are both arrested for drugs. Child is pulled out of the home and either placed in a foster home or placed temporarily with a family member. By the time they get situated, DCFS is involved. They've been checked out in the emergency room. All those things happen at maybe 1, 2, 3 in the morning, that this child gets settled into wherever they're going to be. And you can imagine how traumatizing that is for a child. And then they're woken up at 7 o'clock the next morning. They're put on a strange school bus, more than likely, with clothes that maybe aren't even their own. And they come to school and within an hour having a complete meltdown, or maybe they are falling asleep at their desk or just shaking or zoned out. The teacher is going to know something's up. Handle with Care gives that teacher an alert that something happened. And so rather than discipline the child for acting out or whatever, that teacher knows we need to reach for those pre-set helps that are all involved in that particular school. Everyone is going to look a little bit different, every community, every school, every law enforcement. This is just one example, and I'll go into a little more detail on that here in just a little bit. I don't know if the next slide is mine, Ambrosia. Yep. Well, yes, it is. So obviously this lessens some of the trauma for the child. So we can't always take away the trauma that happened in the home, but we can make sure that we're not adding to the trauma at school. And I think everybody on this call is probably well versed in what ACEs are, or adverse childhood experiences. These are horrible things that happen to kids, really hard things that kids have to deal with that cause long-term effects, whether they're health effects, emotional, psychological effects, whatever. We know that children who experience trauma have long-term effects. So we call those ACEs. That's it in a nutshell. But now we've got something new that comes out called PACEs, positive childhood experiences. And these particular experiences help build a child's sense of belonging and help negate those long-term effects of the ACEs, or the adverse childhood experience. So to think of it as taking something positive and trying to kind of blot out the bad stuff with that positive action. And that's what a situation like this in a school has the opportunity to do with that relationship with law enforcement. Next slide. Okay, I think this goes to
Yep,
Doug.
that's fine. Good evening, everyone. I'm Officer Doug Cochran. I'm the Kansas Police Department. I'm the statewide law enforcement liaison for the Handle with Care program. This program, as Liesl said, is to help a traumatic event in which a child has been involved with move forward. And as we know, whomever that I'm speaking with is with law enforcement today, is we know scene safety, victim safety, the suspect safety is utmost importance when we get there. This Handle with Care project is a very simple tool for law enforcement to move forward. Ambrosia, you can go ahead and move the slide. You may ask, what scene incidents may require Handle with Care? And one of the things that we have developed indicator cards that you can keep in your squad car, your duty bag, that helps you decide, does this incident actually will initiate the Handle with Care, whether it be a violation of an order of protection, a death in the family, an overdose, a traumatic traffic accident. You can move forward, Ambrosia, on the slide. One of the things that we've been able to develop, at least with the agencies around that I have spoken with, as we know in law enforcement, we're juggling many balls at the scene. Usually we're one officer, maybe two at the most. So adding extra layers for us to work with, the Handle with Care project is a very simple process. All you need to do is gather the child's name, gather the child's age, if possible, the school in which they attend. One of the ways around our area that we found that works really well is radioing and dispatch, letting dispatch know the child's name, the age, and the verbiage handled with care. At that point, dispatch will then contact that school. What we've found is most of the schools we have spoken with, the either superintendent and or principal wants to be the contact person. That verbiage is passed along, law enforcement is done. Another thing that we've developed through the Handle with Care project, we all realize we have department policies and protocols in which we have to adhere to. We have developed a Handle with Care policy template. We can provide that to your agency in Word document so you can massage it to make it fit your policy manual. But the heavy lifting has been done by us to make sure that it's a simple transition process for your command staff and your officers to move forward. So we can provide those with you. They're also going to talk a little bit further on through this process. They have comfort bags, which we can keep in our squad cars to be able to give to the child, to be able to help them focus on something besides the traumatic event in which they've just experienced. My contact information will be at the end of the slide. Feel free to either call me, email me with questions, and if I need to, I will come to your agency, talk to your command staff to get this process moving forward. Every law enforcement agency, whether it been state police command staff, FBI, and sheriff's departments, have all been very, very, very supportive of this process. And it's one of these processes where law enforcement and education can move forward together in a positive manner. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Leanna Morgan. I'm the program coordinator for the Build, Amplify, Support, Empower, or also for short, BASE program. I work with Ambrosia at our house. She has asked me to help with talking about the Handle with Care because our program is helping with setting that up in Coles and Douglas counties in Illinois. It's heartbreaking to know that 60% of children in the US have faced violence, crime, or abuse in their lives. These young individuals come to class carrying not only their school supplies, but also the heavy burdens of stress and trauma. This emotional weight can significantly affect their behavior and academic performance, often in ways their teachers and peers may not even recognize. Each student brings their unique life experiences to the classroom, whether they come from moments of joy, like a fun outing or a triumphant achievement, or from more difficult situations such as family conflicts or exposure to negative influences. These experiences profoundly shape their mindset and readiness to learn. By embracing trauma-informed care, we can provide the understanding and support that these children need. We have the opportunity to implement strategies that genuinely address the behaviors arising from their daily struggles, fostering an environment filled with empathy and compassion. We can help them heal and thrive, making the classroom a safe space for all. Next slide. Before implementing Handle with Care, removing recess negatively affected students who required movement to help them self-regulate. Now we recognize students' emotions, offer support, and provide alternatives, such as breaks or stepping outside to assist them in managing their feelings constructively. Many teachers of younger students have designated areas equipped with stress balls and other calming items that children can access when they need a break. Next slide. Before Handle with Care, the teacher would threaten to send the student to a principal's office for not paying attention or for sleeping in class, reinforcing avoidance behavior rather than addressing the root issue. Now we respond with kindness, gently walking, assessing well-being, and offering calm, judgment-free support. Next slide. Before Handle with Care, staying after school reinforced accountability, but not self-regulation. Punishing with after-school detention can lower a child's confidence, leading to shame, self-doubt, and disengagement rather than fostering growth. Now, one-on-one discussions help students understand their behavior and its impact. Next slide. Research indicates that children who experience trauma are far more likely to encounter disciplinary action in school. Each additional adverse childhood experience, or ACE, raises a preschooler's risk of suspension or expulsion by 80%. Furthermore, children with 4 or more ACEs are 32 more times more likely to be identified as having behavioral issues. Prior to initiatives like Handle with Care, many students are punished for distress stemming from trauma rather than being supported with understanding and empathy. Next slide. So what insights are professionals sharing about Handle with Care, and why are they recommending it? One said, before Handle with Care, we often mistook a child's bad day for misbehavior. Now we respond with empathy, reducing disciplinary issues and fostering a more supportive classroom. Another said, as a substitute teacher, I often mistook distress for misconduct. Before Handle with Care, I lacked the context to truly support my students. Another one said, as the Handle with Care contact, I've seen how awareness transforms support. This program fosters understanding and creates a safer school environment. Handle with Care shifts school discipline from punishment to empathy, promoting understanding and reducing conflicts. This approach fosters a safer, more supportive environment where students feel valued, ultimately enhancing relationships and learning outcomes. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanna. So far, I'm just going to give us a little bit of a recap. So far with this discussion session, Liesel's given us just a little bit of context as to what Handle with Care is, kind of what that looks like. Doug has talked from the law enforcement perspective on, how they send that Handle with Care message, what that looks like, what situation should they send that message. Leanna talked a little bit about how, that child that showed up to school the next day. What can we do different after we implement Handle with Care? Now, I'm going to share some fun stuff with you guys. One of the cool things that we have been able to do with the Circle of Care program is we were awarded funds to be able to put together and distribute 14,400 comfort bags across the state of Illinois. So you guys heard that right. That was 14,400. It's been crazy wild. And so with these bags, we have youth and teen bags and English and Spanish bags. And so one of the big things that we've done with the project through Handle with Care and with another training that we've done called the Threads of Hope training is we want to be able to give these bags out to all of you, for you guys to give out to the kiddos that you work with and serve in your communities. And so I'll tell you guys a little bit about the bags. Like I said, there's youth bags, English, teen, and Spanish. So there's a little bit of variation between the bags. In every single bag, they have a super cute Mimble ball. So you guys can see in the pictures, one of them says the mini Mimble, the other one's a bigger Mimble ball. And so the Mimble ball has a lot of meaning behind it. The Mimble ball doesn't have a mouth because it means your Mimble ball doesn't judge you. It has wide set eyes that are supposed to be non-predatorial for kiddos. They also have this crazy hair, if you could see. I wish I had my Mimble ball right next to me, but I don't. But it's got this crazy hair. And so it's supposed to be really comforting for kiddos. So the kiddos can take and pet the Mimble ball's hair back. And then if you take the Mimble ball and if you bop it on its bottom, its hair goes crazy. And that's supposed to tell kiddos it's okay to be crazy in yourself sometimes. So all of the items in these bags have a lot of meaning behind them. We have some wooden hearts and markers for the kiddos to do an activity with those wooden hearts and markers. We have a comfort bag letter that we give to our comfort bag recipients to give to the child with the bag that kind of explains to them like, hi, I'm your comfort bag. And on the flip side, it gives them some prompts on ways that they can use the wooden hearts and markers to do that activity. We have a bookmark with Jerry Moe's The 7 C's on it. And on the flip side, it has some teen helplines on there. And then the rest of the bags have a lot of variation between different books and journals that they have in there with them. Let me see if we've got, these are our 15 bags. And so, like I said again, with the comfort bags, we designed them with different materials to be really comforting for kiddos. And so really with these bags, again, you guys are working with or serving these kiddos in your community. So we want to give them out to you guys for you guys to give out to the kiddos that you serve. And so at the end of the presentation, I will be dropping an evaluation link in the chat. If you would like these bags, please fill out the evaluation link because there will be a question in there that says, hey, do you want some comfort bags? And all you have to say is yes, no, or maybe I want some more information. And I'll be able to go back in there. And if you say yes, then we will send you an additional form to fill out because we just have to collect some demographic information for you guys about the kiddos that you work with or serve. And if you don't know that information, that's fine. You don't have to include it in there. We really want to get these bags out to you guys. And so now I'm going to turn it over to Liesl. She's going to talk a little bit more in depth about, implementation, what this has looked like across the state. And then at the very end, I'm going to tell you guys about a Google Drive resource folder that we have for you guys that's packed full of, ready to go implementation resources for you guys to get this started in your community. So now I'm going to hand it over to you, Liesl.
Awesome. Okay, Ambrosia, I have a question. Can you guys hear me normally on your end? Because Ambrosia, you were coming through really quiet on my end, and I'm not sure if that's my connection just because it's storming where I am. So I wanted to make sure that you guys could hear me. So let's talk some of the real basic things. First off, Handle with Care programs are going to look different in every single community. So I don't want you to think that there's just one set way to do this. There is not. Every community looks different. And a lot of times that's based on whether you're an urban community or a rural community. My specialization is rural medicine. And so when I talk rural, it's much easier many times for us to develop out Handle with Care because it's much smaller. The connections are a little bit less. But let's talk about what an urban community might look like. First off, a lot of times I have communities that do the entire school system under one simple plan, and that works. That works. If that works within your urban community, that was wonderful. If you don't think that that's going to work in your community, it may need to be different for each school relationship with their law enforcement, and that is okay too. If it is a large urban community and everybody's going to be on the same plan or the same program, there is a computer program that's out there that can help with tracking this stuff and making the connections. And I know that the school system in Peoria is doing that. It's called Lifting Up. And if you want information on that specific computer program that helps to set this program up, let one of us know. Just reach out to us and we'll put you in contact with the right people for that. It's, of course, going to cost money. And I know school systems especially have a hard time with coming up with extra money for that kind of thing. So it's not imperative that you do it that way. Just for some school systems, that has worked really well. And I just want you to know that that is an option. In most school systems, how we see this happening is getting the right parties involved. And I'm going to use a rural area just because it's simple and it's very simplified. And I think those of you who are from an urban area will then understand how to adapt that to your system. But what we do is we pull together the right people, definitely law enforcement, definitely the people from the school system or the school, whichever way you're going to go about doing that. And we pull them together to start talking. Now, different school systems have different ways of dealing with children from a counseling basis. I have rural and urban schools that have counselors, school counselors, not just guidance counselors, but actual counselors on site, on staff. You want to make sure you're involving those people also in the conversation. We also talk about, I have some school systems that involve DCFS in those conversations. Not very often does DCFS get involved in this simply because they have their own protocols, but it is nice to at least extend the offer for them to sit in on that conversation. They may have some insight into your area as to how it might best work with this. Also, another component that is there if you need it, and we will talk about HIPAA. Okay, I knew that covered that question would come up. But another one that you might want to pull in, and again, every community is different. You might want to pull in emergency room personnel with your local hospital, because many times these kids get routed, especially in a drug endangered situation, they're going to get routed through the emergency room. And so your emergency room may want to be involved in that conversation. But the most important people to be involved is law enforcement and that particular school or school system. Okay, those are the two that you can't do without. So what are we going to do? We're going to sit down with everybody and we're going to talk through, here's where HIPAA comes in. Here are my boundaries that working for the school system, here's what I can and can't do. Law enforcement, same thing. But one thing to remember, the only thing that you are sharing between law enforcement and the school system is that specifically Johnny Smith needs to be handled with care. You're not going to give any details about what happened at all. Just simply handle Johnny Smith with care. Usually that will work you through the HIPAA issues because you're not giving specifics to the situation. So I just throw that out to you. What's on my next slide, Ambrosia? Because I can never quite remember what the next slide is. Okay, that's what I was just talking about there. In terms of law enforcement, you need to make sure, if at all possible, that you've got both the city police and the county sheriff's departments involved. So that usually means the chief of police and the sheriff is where you start with that. Within the school systems, not only are we dealing with counselors, but if your school system has a school resource officer, this is a really good point person within the school, and I'll give an example of that. But your school resource officers can be very, very, very critical here. And I see the question come up, do others sometimes include shelters or housing? I have not had school systems that have brought that up and brought them into the conversation. And then that's not saying that it couldn't happen. It's just not something that I have seen, because really all we're addressing is the immediate trauma with that child. And I see a question, getting school and local police involved in the next steps. How do we, or do we present this? Yes, yes, yes. You do need to make sure that school and local police are involved. All those facets of law enforcement and the school need to be involved. And then I've listed the others as far as who to involve, as far as the counseling and the medical and DCFS if they want to be involved. Now, I think it's going to be best for me. I'm going to give you a more in-depth story to show you how this works. And then we'll break down what do we do in that meeting when we've met with these partners. And I can use some of those examples. So I've had a case where I've changed names, I've changed ages, and this case happened years ago. But I had a little boy, 6 or 7 years old. Dad was involved in drugs, and mom and dad were divorced, and he was on his time, his couple of days with dad in the week. And law enforcement had been watching dad for the drug situation and pulled dad over. Little boy was in the car with him. Pulled dad over. And as most of you know, that when law enforcement pulls over somebody for concern for drugs, they've got to search everything and everybody. So not only dad gets searched, not only the car gets searched, but this little boy and his things needed to be searched. And now there's a trauma involved in that. And so with this particular community, the point person was actually the school resource officer. Law enforcement knew that, the school knew that. And the reason is that school resource officer, or that SRO, is he had access to the law enforcement computer platform side of things, as well as that school systems platform, because he was paid through both the sheriff's department as well as the school system. So he had access to all of those things. He was the logical point person for this. So when this guy gets pulled over, law enforcement knew, okay, there's a child in the car. This child is going to have to be searched. We want to reduce the trauma. They had been well educated, so they called the school resource officer. School resource officer was able to get into the school system platform, get a hold of mom to meet them at the site where the dad had been pulled over. Law enforcement didn't do anything till the school resource officer got there. School resource officer put the little boy in his car for a little while. He had the cool repossessed drug car. So, and this little boy was familiar with him because school resource officers in the school. So he knew this man. So waited for mom to get there and then was able to do the search of the little boy and his things, completely lessening that piece of trauma. Now, dad was arrested. Little boy went home with mom. All was well, but within reason. But school resource officer was able to immediately send the alert out to the school system, got in, looked at the platform, saw who the people were that were involved with that particular student, sent out a handle with care so that when this little kid came into school the next morning, everybody knew something had happened and they were on alert and they were ready to help wherever they needed to. Fast forward about 6 weeks, a little bit different of a scenario, same child. Dad was home, child was home with dad for his visiting time during the week. And this man had been being watched by federal drug enforcement agents. So the federal DEA actually did a raid on this man's home. Now, from a federal perspective, they were not involved with Handle with Care. So they didn't know that that was somebody that we needed to make that contact with the school resource officer. They didn't know those things. So dad was drug out of the house. Little boy watched the whole thing. Somewhere in there, the local law enforcement became involved, and thank heaven they were, because they were able to get a hold of the school resource officer who started the process all over again for this little guy. Now, next day, little guy comes into school and everybody is alerted. And by this point, school counseling is now involved, knowing that something has happened and they're a little more aware of the situation. Mom had come in, told them what was going on, and there's where HIPAA gets passed through. Nothing was talked about without mom being the one doing the talking and then bringing that little boy into it. So that's an awesome way to deal with that. And that may not have happened had Handle with Care not been involved. Okay. So that's a really good example. Now I want to fast forward even further. This little boy's father was arrested federally, did a couple of years' time. When he came back into the community, of course, this little boy is not so little anymore, came back into the community, and already pieces were in place simply through the Handle with Care program to make sure that the family had the supports to support not only this little boy, but also the family and connect them with the appropriate counseling. They were able to prepare this little guy for his dad coming back. And I will tell you that things are going quite well with that situation. And I do believe that a huge amount of that trauma was reduced because of that Handle with Care. It wasn't taken away completely, but it certainly was much better suited to dealing with that particular little boy. And then it extended into the extended family with mom and dad. And then even further as dad came back into the community and is actually doing really well. So Handle with Care served a really good purpose there. That was a small rural community that was able to pull that off. Like Doug said, in many, many cases, the point person is actually dispatch, and that is absolutely appropriate for those communities. This circles back around to who do I involve? We involve law enforcement and the school system and other entities as needed, where you sit down and have a conversation and you hash out how are we going to do this and how are we going to make it work correctly. Now, I don't know if I've got the next slide too, Ambrosia. No,
I think
not
so.
sure. Okay.
Nope.
Then what I'm going to do, let me talk about just the steps really quickly to doing this. You're going to meet with your partners, these people on the screen. You've got to sit down and talk about what the boundaries are for each discipline, because everyone is going to look a little different and everybody interprets HIPAA just a little bit differently. Do not expect somebody to break their company or their organizational policy. It's not going to happen. but there are workarounds. As you talk and as you communicate and work it through, I've never had a community that was unable to work through those issues, but it takes sitting down and talking. Now, the next piece is going to be, how are we going to have law enforcement notify the school system? How's that going to work? Is that dispatch? Is that school resource officer? Is that a school administrator? Everybody's different. There's no wrong way to do it. You just do it the way that works best for your community. What kind of supports are going to be offered to that child? Does the school have access to a counselor, or are we going to use an outside counselor? What if this child comes in and he's been up all night, or she's been up all night and has not had breakfast? Do we have food? If this child needs to sleep because they've been up all night, do we have a space that we can put that child with a pillow and a blanket and just let them sleep and decompress? Those are all things that the school is going to be thinking through and working through. What can we offer for that? Does this child need some clothes? Do they need a change of clothes? Did they get pulled out of the house and nobody had a change of clothes? Those are things the school needs to stop and think about. Who do we connect with to get that if we need it? Or do we have things on site just for that child? Or do we have money, little fund that somebody can run out and buy, go out to Walmart and buy what that child needs for that day? Comfort bags. Ambrosia has already talked about those. And as I hear that number once again, 14,400 comfort bags going out across the community, that makes me really happy. We also have some, there's journals in the comfort bags. So journaling, especially with our older kids, with our younger kids, coloring pages. Where do I get coloring pages to deal with trauma? Well, Sesame Street has a wonderful website called sesameworkshop.org. And I think we can drop that in the chat. But sesameworkshop.org actually deals specifically with situations that our kids are going through. And one of those topics that they deal with is parental addiction, but there's many others. And you can go to that link and you can go on the top of the website and it'll say topics, and you hit that and drop down and you can click on whatever's going on with that particular kiddo. And I know school counselors who don't know about this website, who find it, are amazed. There's so much good stuff on sesameworkshop.org. It's a tool, it's a resource that can be used when a child is sitting in your office crying and you're not really sure how to deal with that or what to deal with. Our younger kids can color. Coloring is a wonderful space for them to work through their feelings. And I will tell you that I am a grandparent raising a grandchild, and I use these tools all the time. They are wonderful. So once you have determined what can we offer this child for help, what is going to be preset for them or for that situation. Also, I would ask yourself, what do we have in the community for the family? Do I know the resources to refer to? Your counselors often do, but sometimes they're so wiped up with the nitty-gritty in the school that it is hard for them to pull those resources together. So make sure you have a list of those resources. And I will say that on this website that Ambrosia has developed so wonderfully, there are oodles and gobs. There's my professional way of saying that. Oodles and gobs of resources for grief or trauma that these children are dealing with. Also, the Illinois Family Resource Center as a whole. And if you go to, is it IllinoisFamilyResource.org? Is that correct?
Illinois Family Resources, S at the end.
Resources.org. Tons and tons and tons of good connections. So make sure that you guys have that information. So once you've got all those pieces in place, you're going to educate all of your school staff, not just the teachers, not just the administrators, everybody, right down to the secretaries and the janitors and the food cafeteria workers. Everybody needs to understand what Handle with Care is and how we're going to implement it. The same holds true for both sides of law enforcement, sheriff's department, police department. That way everybody knows there's no excuses. We know we're going to do this and this is how we're going to do it. And this is what's going to happen on the other side. So many good things can come from this, and I have seen it over and over and over again. If you have questions and need help setting that up within your community, other than law enforcement, Doug is the law enforcement person. I'm the practical communication person, the nuts and bolts person. Both of our emails will be at the end of this. And even when the project comes to an end, the Circle of Care project comes to an end June 30th, my job is to continue to carry this out afterwards. And so please, please make sure you have my contact information, and Doug and I will jump in a heartbeat. I know if Ambrosia's still hanging around, we will grab her too, but the resources will be there. That was the idea with this project. Please, please lean into them. They are wonderful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Liesl. I'm so happy that, you touched on all of those resources that are out there and available for people. And, so really point blank, what we have been here to talk about today, you guys, is Handle with Care. And we want to help all of you in getting this established in your community. That is what our whole team is here for. All of you, we're here for you in your community and your law enforcement and your educators. So if you guys are interested, please let us know. We can come to your community. We have all of these resources in a resource folder, which I'm just going to show you on the next slide, all of these great resources. And I'm going to talk a little bit about, as Liesl shared with the Circle of Care project, some additional resources that we have created. So, with the Circle of Care, like I said, our focus is supporting children who have experienced grief or loss due to substance use related death and disorders. So, two of the things that we've created with our project are Grief Support Services Directory and some online resource toolkits. So, our Grief Support Services Directory contains all of the current clinical and non-clinical grief resources, services, and supports that we have here in the state of Illinois, as well as some national ones as well and virtual ones. So everything. It's an amazing resource. We have an amazing researcher on our team who did all of this research for us, finding all of those different grief resources across the state of Illinois. So on this directory, you can find licensed clinical professionals who provide grief-specific services such as like counseling or therapy. You can also find grief support groups. You can find hospice organizations. Recreational activities such as like bereavement camps for kiddos, any type of grief resource, service, or support, we have it listed on that directory. If you go on the directory and you look, a lot of communities don't have any grief resources on there for them. So one of the things that we've been able to do is we've added a button. So say if you go to your county or community that you live in, I live in Clark County. I always give this example because I live in the county. But I live in Clark County, and if you go on the directory and click on Clark County, it will show you there are not any grief resources in my community. So we added in a button to be able to search nearby counties. So whenever you click on that button, it will show you all of the grief resources and all of the counties surrounding your county. That way there are at least some options, as well as some statewide results that we have in there as well. So please get connected with our Grief Support Services directory. We also have some online resource toolkits. We like to call these kind of like those resources for our natural helpers in the now. So say if you have a child that you're working with who has been impacted in some way by grief or loss, or by substance use disorder in their families. We have created a ton of different toolkits, and three of them are based on the developmental age of children. So we have three different toolkits, one for ages 0 to 5, 6 to 12, and 13 to 17. And inside of these toolkits are different resources, tools, and activities that our natural helpers can do with these children. Different coloring pages that they can print off in there. We've been able to work with the experts in the grief and substance use disorder field to put all of these resources in one place for you guys to be able to have access to. We've also just done a phase 2 to our online resource toolkits, where we have added lists of like books, children's books in there based on age for kiddos that are specific to grief and loss and substance use disorder. We've added in resources that are specific like for Spanish speaking individuals. So we have Spanish resources in there. We have resources that are more specific to that ambiguous or ambivalent loss, for those kiddos who are still living in the chaos. We also have resources in there that are specific to culture, like tons of stuff. I'm telling you guys, we have tons of stuff in those toolkits. Please check them out. They're all completely free. Again, they're going to be on IllinoisFamilyResources.org website. I will drop all of that in the chat here in just a couple of slides. But the next thing I wanted to go over with you guys is we have developed a resource. It's like a Google Drive folder of Handle with Care resources. And so some of the things that you guys will see in there is we do have like a flow chart. This is from Handle with Care West Virginia. They have, if you guys find them online, they have a ton of Handle with Care resources that has worked for them in that state. So this is just kind of a flow chart on everything that we've discussed today, how Handle with Care essentially works. We also have the Memorandum of Understanding. So this is one of the things that we give out to our law enforcement agencies and our schools, and it just kind of outlines everyone's part in Handle with Care. And so we give this to the law enforcement agencies and education. And usually, whenever Doug has been going around to communities to get Handle with Care up off the ground and supporting communities, he can sit you guys all down in one room and explain everything and get it all signed for you guys. So that is in the Google Drive folder as well. As Doug said earlier, we created these Handle with Care identification cards for our law enforcement. We have these that we are giving out for free, people, to law enforcement agencies across the state. If you need some, please let us know. Again, on that evaluation link that I'm going to be dropping, you can just go in there and there's a question that asks you if you would like some for your agency. We'll give those to you guys. This is the last thing. It's a QR code, but again, here in a second, I'm going to pop out of presentation mode and drop it in the chat for you guys. But please fill out this evaluation for us. Let us know how we did. We've got one more training after this, so if there's any improvements we need to make, please let us know. You can also fill out the evaluation, and that's how you will get the resource drive folder that way. And then if you're wanting some comfort bags for kids, please, please, please fill that out because like I said, people, 14,400. We've got a lot to give out and we want to get them to you. One last thing, this PowerPoint presentation is also in that Google Drive folder. And so you can see here, this is all of our contact information. I'm going to pop out really, really quick and drop these in the chat for you guys for the evaluation and the Handle with Care resources. But we'd love to know any questions that you guys have for us. I apologize. I have not been looking at the chat as I was presenting. So
Can you
we
show
would
that
love
last slide? It was really
Oh,
quick. You showed it. Thank you.
oh yes. Oh yes, sorry. Let me drop this last link in the chat. Perfect. What questions do you guys have for us? Any at all? Like I said, whatever you guys need from us, we would love to come to your community, help you get this up off the ground.
I was going to ask you about that. Do we just email you in regards to getting in touch with you and working with our local police officers and local school districts in our community and getting something like that going?
Absolutely. You can just put all of us in a group email.
Okay.
My contact information's not in here, but I will
I
be
have
sending.
yours. I
Okay,
have
great.
your
Oh
card. I
yeah,
have
we
your
were
card.
just emailing. I
I
forgot.
have it. I have it, Ambrosia. Thank you.
Yeah, I will be sending a follow-up email to all of you that attended today and be providing the link to the evaluation again, as well as the link to the Google Drive folder. Because yes, we would love to come to communities and help you guys in getting this started, getting those comfort bags out, all of it. We'd love to do all of it.
Thank you for everything. It was very good. And lots of resources to go off of and what to do next. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on your Thursday evening. I keep thinking it's Friday. I'm like, I'm ready for it to be Friday, I guess.